when grief arrives, because when you don't know what to do and you don't know what to say, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and you can't fix it. The magic answer is just show up.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview inspiring and influential guests who are making their mark on the world and contributing to the greater good. Making your mark, big or small, is creating a legacy, and it's one of the proven ways we can age with energy and joy. Zestful Aging Podcast is my legacy. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker. Find out more at judybanker.com. And to find out more about this podcast, my web courses, and other offerings, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. And while you're there, sign up for my email newsletter, The Insider, where you will get behind-the-scenes looks at my interviews and other fun tidbits. Well, you know who I've got right beside me, Sparky, my Jack Russell Terrier, and we have a great show for you today. How can we get more comfortable talking about grief and loss? In her 27-year career as a nurse, Yvonne Heath learned that many of us simply don't know how to grieve. She realized that we live in a grief-phobic society and that our reluctance to talk about our grief causes excessive pain for us and our loved ones. So Yvonne took a leap of faith, left her career, and founded Love Your Life to Death, and became an author, speaker, and change maker. Her mission: to help people talk about and plan for grief, death, and dying. Welcome to the show, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And this is where all the grief-phobic people went, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's
this is
they
going to
changed the preset. Yeah, they're like, yeah. Well, let me see what makeup hides my wrinkles. I'm going to go that route.
Absolutely.
That's right. So that's a great place to start. You do use the term grief-phobic society.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about what that means?
Absolutely, I can, because I lived it in my 27 years of nursing. You know, here we are, the healthcare professionals who are good at grief, right, Nicole? You know that as a social worker, we're all great at grief, and what we are good at is hiding it, numbing it, drinking red wine to not feel our pain, or, you know, being excessively busy. And it's interesting because you don't even know that for me, over 27 years of nursing, it was sort of chipping away at my soul, because as I was supporting families and patients and coworkers in their grief, and often experiencing my own grief in my life, it was just sort of building inside, right? Because I was going to be strong for everyone. I was a mom and I was a healthcare professional, and I am a woman, hear me roar. I can do all of this, until I couldn't do it anymore. And so in kind of stepping back and saying to my fellow coworkers, which were social workers, doctors, nurses, are we well prepared for grief personally and professionally? And they just kind of looked at me like, no, we're terrible at it. And, you know, go do your job. We don't want to talk about this. And so I kind of stepped back and said, well, if healthcare professionals are ill prepared for grief and end of life, and then who's teaching community members to be prepared for grief and end of life and all the grief of life? And the answer was no one. And when I went out to the community to have these conversations, well, people would kind of run the other way. I don't want to talk about this. And so I decided to. I took that leap and said, we need to do this differently, because in avoiding, we are creating our own excessive suffering. You know, when it comes to grief, we are reactive, not proactive, and I want to change that.
Yvonne, it sounds like at the same time you were having this realization in your career, you talk about this in your TED Talk, that you were also experiencing some loss and pain at home. Would you have ended up here had you not also been dealing with this in your personal life?
That's a really good question. And yes, I can say the year was 2010. And I had twins who were little, and I was working in chemotherapy, and our son, ironically enough, went down a very dangerous road of drugs and addiction as he had grief in his life and didn't know what to do with it. And so, yeah, it was in that moment where I felt heartbroken as a mom, overwhelmed in chemotherapy and as a nurse, and realizing that people were avoiding me because they didn't know what to do or say. I needed to do something differently. So it's a good question. Would I have done this otherwise? And maybe not. I may have just continued on in my nursing career, suffering excessively. But it was like my grief was so compounded in so many ways. It was either allow it to destroy me or do something different. So I am just so grateful that I picked up those pieces of my broken heart and said, I need to do this differently because otherwise I will not survive.
Absolutely. I think it makes so much sense for, you call yourself a change maker. And I think oftentimes, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but what I see most times is that the personal and the professional kind of come together, and then there's this really clear mission of I need to do something, a project, initiative, whatever, just like what you're describing. Let me ask you a question, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm a psychotherapist,
Yes.
but I'm so interested in mind body, and I wonder what it felt like to be whole. I mean, I myself have had chemotherapy, and it is not a party, and there's a lot of scared people there, right? And there's it's a very somber, usually kind of room, and you're carrying this. You're dealing with your son. What was it like in your body? What were the feelings and the experience of being saturated with grief?
Wow. It's interesting because no matter how long it is, I can still go right back and I can feel it.
Yes.
I can just feel it. It was like, first of all, there were many times where I was having chest pain that I actually thought I was having a heart attack. And it was actually grief. And I felt paralyzed, like my body, like it was just sometimes a struggle to actually move. Just a struggle. Heavy, my gosh, heavy. So hard to move. And just this overwhelming body feeling of helplessness, I guess is how I could best describe it. And in the meantime, and you're so right, personally and professionally, we are one person, personally and professionally, yet we try to check our personal self at the door and put on our happy face, right, for everyone. And for anyone who knows or has seen the movie Patch Adams, and if you haven't, you must, Patch Adams brought heart and humor, and I'm very funny. You may not know this yet, but I'm hilarious. And so, P.S., I'm really funny. But I brought humor and silliness and toys and costumes to the chemo clinic to emerge. And so I still relied on that, and yet I felt like I was dying inside.
Oh my goodness, so much effort.
Oh gosh, so much effort. And, the whole, the pretend conversation. Hi, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. Okay, well, if you need anything, let me know. Thanks.
Yes.
And everyone's so relieved that you gave the standard answer because they didn't really want to hear about it. And
they didn't want you to say I'm dying inside.
Yeah, and they want you to pretend you're fine when you're not. And we did it, and that's what we've done. And that's also part of the culture I would like to change, because here's the thing, right? And that's like with my TED Talk and the whole I Just Showed Up movement. It is not our job to judge or to fix someone's grief, but we can love and support them along the way. And that is the greatest gift we can give them, validating their story, acknowledging and allowing their story. And I needed to I needed to have my heart that broken to sort of step out of my career to be able to see this more clearly. And of course, the greatest gift that I've been given is I have interviewed hundreds of people. When I wrote my book and I created my online program and my TED Talk, I interviewed people. I listened. I listened to stories. And I said, what helped you when you were in the deep trenches of grief? And, just to backtrack, grief is not just experienced at end of life, right? And that's what we just think. Somebody dies, you're sad, you're crying. Yes, and grief is our mental, physical, and emotional reaction to loss, transitions, and change. Even good change, there's grief. And, we are, of course, experiencing the motherload of grief right now, global grief, a pandemic on top of all the other stuff. And so, again, the fact that we don't talk about grief, we don't understand it, we don't know how it shows up in our body, we don't understand how we process it mentally, physically, emotionally, how important it is to mourn, to actually release that. The best thing you can do for your friend is just show up and listen. We don't talk about it before, so why should we know that that's the most helpful thing we can do?
Hi, listeners. A quick interruption to tell you about a powerful tool I actually rediscovered after 15 years that will help you with stress, anxiety, and depression. I'm talking about the meditations from Health Journeys created by trauma expert Bella Ruth Naparstak. When I had to have major surgery many years ago, I listened to these meditations and it was enormously helpful. Health Journeys meditations are a little different than the run-of-the-mill meditations that you can find on apps. They're scientifically created and are used in over 3,000 hospitals. I highly recommend them and I use them myself. You can go to zestfulaging.com or NicoleChristina.com and you will see a direct link. I hope you find them helpful and I'm interested in your experience. Now back to the show. What do you think? This might be a tough question, so, feel free to punt, but what is the cost of unprocessed grief?
Ooh, the cost. It so affects us in literally every way. And when you think of actual cost, actual physical cost, it is costing our healthcare system. Number one, it is falling apart because, and that's globally. Like I have connected with hospice, palliative care internationally. This is not a Western culture society. This is everywhere, or in many places where, wherever we can have futile medicine, which means we treat people no matter what the outcome, and we don't know what to do with grief, death, and dying. And so there is literally a cost of continuous treatment when people actually don't really want it. How do I know?
I had not thought of that aspect, that if you can't really sit with the reality, we are indeed powerless, and how can we accept this and be with it? That would create a very different kind of decision, process.
100%. And
I had never considered that.
Well, it is too, and the loss and the cost in that is twofold. Number one, and I know this firsthand. Many chemo patients would say to me, I don't want this chemo, I don't want this blood transfusion, I don't want to go to the intensive care, have this surgery. And I would literally look at them and beg them, please tell your family, tell your doctor how you feel. And they'd say, no, they don't want me to give up. And so the actual literal cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars of someone who didn't want that therapy, chemotherapy, whatever, and the cost of not bringing that person home or to hospice and being present at this could almost make me cry. I usually make at least one person cry a day, but being present in their dying process at end of life, wherever, in comfort.
One of the most important decisions they'll make.
Oh my goodness. And so many missed opportunities and so many, the cost. Families being ill prepared for this, right? Families fractured beyond repair when everyone thinks that something different should be happening, right? And then families never speak to each other again. They don't support each other through the dying process. The person dies in fear. The family's left in fear. They're stuck in their grief. The cost, I can't even, it's just the ripple. The ripple of damage, how far you never even you don't know, because this is not an uncommon thing. And when people read my book, it's hilarious because they're like, oh my gosh, I need to have these conversations. I need to prepare because, it's a little bit of tough love. I said, here's scenario A and B. I mean, we're not meant to live forever. Sorry, everybody. And I don't want to live forever. I want to live the heck out of this life I have now. And I take my responsibility of planning my life and planning my end of life and being well prepared for grief as it shows up throughout life. It is my responsibility. That is my responsibility. And grief shows up throughout life. Even in good things, grief and joy can coexist, right? We just moved last week. And as I was sweeping our old house where I moved to that house and I was a nurse, I left that house as an author, speaker, change maker. That house means so much to me. And as I was sweeping, I was crying and saying, I'm going to miss you. And I'm going to, thank you for everything. I'm talking to my house. My kids are like, Mom, you're talking to the house. I said, yes, I am. I'm thanking this house. I love my new house. Grief and joy, right? And imagine if we actually understood this. Imagine if we understood that everyone grieves differently. And truly, living well, grieving well, dying well, or living poorly, grieving poorly, dying poorly is something we can experience regardless of age, race, culture, sexual orientation, ability, disability, where we live in the world. We all wish to live, grieve, and die well. And we can learn from and teach one another.
What does that look like, Yvonne? What is a good death?
Oh, gosh, I love this question. And you know what? That is literally, I wrote about that. The first story I heard, a nurse came to my house and told me the story of her dad. And I had no idea what I was doing. I'm going to write a book. I didn't even journal. And this nurse said, I'm going to tell you about my dad. His name is Homer. And I said, well, I want you to come over and tell me because his name's Homer. I already love him. This is like, how could I not love him? And she told me his story and it was like I froze and knew what I needed to do for the rest of my life. And I'll tell you in 2 minutes a little bit about Homer. So Homer lost his sight at the age of 17, but that did not stop him from living his life fully. And he golfed and he bowled and he became an advocate for people with disabilities, and he had 5 children. And at the end of his life, when he was nearing end of life, he said, that's it, no more treatment. It's time to plan my death. And he wrote letters for his family. He bought lockets for his daughters and his wife. He had his son-in-law pick a new suit because he wanted to look good at his visitation. He knotted a tie because no one would do it as well as he would. And he had his daughter practice the eulogy that he wrote because he didn't want anyone else putting words in his mouth. And as he was dying, his 2 daughters were holding his hand. And his daughter Sue looked at him and said, jump, Dad. And with his loving daughters by his side, he jumped. Now that's what I call a beautiful death.
Oh my goodness.
And we can create that. I make you cry, Nicole, because then I can check off. Oh, good.
You did. And usually it's the other way around. I have a little bit of a reputation for that.
Me too.
Oh, my goodness. You know, it's interesting. When I was filling out the 3 wishes, is it the 5 wishes? How many wishes is it? It's an end of life kind of thing.
Oh, yes. I think
what I'm talking about. And it was so interesting because I thought it was going to be really like kind of a bummer and
doom and
morose.
gloom.
There was something very weirdly, and I don't like the word empowering. I think it's overused a lot, but just like, what do you want? Music?
Yeah.
Do you want this? And I said, I'll tell you what I want. I want my family, my dogs, and chocolate available.
There you go.
High quality chocolate. I want it in the forest.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where I want it because everyone knows I love to walk my dogs in the woods. And this is what I want it to look like. And there was something so weirdly and surprisingly liberating about I get to choose that. And it felt very I don't even know what word to use, which is unlike me. I like words, but I just, it was just, there was something so beautiful about it.
It is beautiful. And this is what, it's interesting because once again, if we can talk about plan and prepare before grief arrives, before end of life, we can give ourselves those moments. And our family, we do not have a choice about planning our end of life. What we have the choice about is when we do it and who does it. Somebody has to do it. I believe it should be me. And I felt a deep we've normalized this in our family, right? And that's the thing that we need to do is normalize this in our culture and across the world. Just normalize that we do end of life planning, regardless of what culture, we need to change. Everyone dies. And it is the hardest, one of the hardest parts of this journey is to physically say goodbye to people. So wouldn't it be in our best interest to talk about plan and prepare? So we've done that, and every year at tax time we pull it out and we update and it's matter of fact. Say, hey honey, we need to change this here on our advanced care plan here. Oh yeah, you know what, I think your sister should be my power of attorney. My sister lives in San Diego. It's not doom and gloom. It's just a conversation we have annually or when something changes. And imagine. So they know. So now the gift that you've given your family, now we've all heard it, so, better happen in the forest and everything.
That's right.
Right? So as opposed to them going, I don't know, what do you think she would have wanted? Well, maybe here. Well, no. It's like, oh, it's all here. How nice. And then doing the best you can, right? But this is just something that, we can normalize anything in our society. We've normalized mask wearing, for heaven's sakes. I mean, 2 years ago, people said, what are you doing? Now you don't even question it. I mean, think about that. Hand sanitizer everywhere you turn around. We can normalize anything. Let's normalize these conversations at home, at school, at work. Let's do it differently because we can.
Do you think that North Americans are particularly bad at this?
Yes.
You do. And do you have any theories about that?
Well, there are many cultures that actually celebrate death. And, of course, Day of the Dead in Mexico is a beautiful, colorful celebration. And I actually have sitting right here this beautiful skeleton with gorgeous colors. And then every year, right, they bring out pictures of those who have died and they celebrate and feast. And I mean, I think that's just extraordinary. And they have a celebration in Australia. I can't remember the dying day or something. And so, they're trying. And I think one of the greatest disadvantages, truthfully, or double-edged sword, I guess I would say, is our Western society has the capacity, so we think, to cure anything with our medical technology.
Okay.
We believe that we can cure anything, right? And so, I mean, I've had patients who were 105 years old and they were ready to die and they wanted to die, and we're giving them blood transfusions, like, as opposed to allowing a natural death. So, you know, in many cultures and obviously in other countries, that is not an option. So whatever medical they have, they do their very best, and then people often die at home, right? Like here, it's like, you know, mom lives in the nursing home, the funeral parlor takes care of the body, they do everything over there. The person might die in intensive care. So like we're like sanitizing our society. Yes. And other places just do not have those options. And truthfully, in many cases now, if pain control can be achieved, and I mean, you know, there are still many countries where people do not die as, you know, again, they have pain because they don't have that medical technology, right? Or, but there's such a tremendous movement. Like I connected with the World Alliance for Hospice Palliative Care, and I mean, they are so committed to having palliative care worldwide, which is, palliative care is just the greatest quality of life with a life-limiting disease. You know, it's not about very end of life care, and that's hospice, right? So as we bring that, it's interesting because in some countries they need that, where in our countries we need to get back to allowing natural death, right? Mm-hmm. Like bringing the medical, like we don't need to treat everyone till their last breath.
I see. Do you think that with COVID, our cultures will be forced to engage this question more, or will we keep doing what we have been doing, which is avoid this uncomfortable subject?
Well, I believe that there will be those who say, oh my gosh, I can't wait to jump back into my bubble of denial. And I also believe, right, wow, this has been awkward. It's been in our face so much. And there are those who are saying, you know what, this has been a wake-up call. And I've heard that more so than not. So I am going to be hopeful. And, you know, the more, again, I share this message globally, and I've met people from around the world that are saying we need to do this differently, and I believe that voice is getting louder and louder. And the more we have like these conversations and we, you know, say, okay, we can do this differently, there'll be more people that are saying, wow, that was, you know, it was scary, and there are so many things we were grieving, and people didn't even understand that we were grieving. I said, oh my goodness, you know, we've had this literally affected every single person in the world in one way or another. Everything from disappointment to devastation to dying alone to, you know, so we have an opportunity. It's kind of like that moment where I felt so like my heart was broken in a million pieces. The world has been in this. And now, you know, when you're kind of sinking at the bottom, you say, okay, now what? I don't want to go back. When people say, I can't wait to return to normal, I say, oh my goodness, no way. I aspire for so much better. Let's learn from everything that we've been through to create better.
Are people open to that message?
I believe more and more. They keep calling me, so that's a good thing.
I guess so.
Right?
Yes.
And that's, yes. Like, it's interesting because I connected with the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation, and anyone who is medical knows who Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was. And I actually had, if people go to my website, they can see I have a TV show called Real Life Talks. I interviewed her son, Ken Ross.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, that was just I interviewed Patch Adams and I interviewed Ken Ross and so many amazing people. But Ken is determined. So many people, speaking of grief, you know, Elizabeth wrote this book on death and dying, and, you know, she talked about 5 stages of grief that in her conversations she witnessed while the whole world went crazy. Oh my God, there's 5 stages of grief. And I mean, they just ran with it. Well, that's not what she meant at all. Like, she wasn't saying that's how we grieve no matter what. She was talking about, this is what she sort of saw in these conversations. She went on to write 24 books and never even talked about the stages again. And that's what we kind of glomped onto, right?
Yes.
These 5 stages of grief. You see it in movies and TV shows. So Ken is being a voice to change that. And he has created the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Foundation. It is an international organization. They just had a webinar series with 11 webinars across, there were people from every country in the world, which was so extraordinary. I got to speak for that organization, and then I spoke for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross Argentina.
I saw that. How cool is that?
Exciting. So, what that tells me is that the world is hungry for knowledge, connection, and change when it comes to grief, death, and dying.
And it sounds like this is the obvious answer, but it sounds like what you're saying is this is your legacy. This is the legacy you're building.
I am so in love. It's like, people say, why did you choose to do this? Like, oh, please, it chose me. And so my legacy is, of course, Love Your Life to Death, my book and everything, and the I Just Showed Up movement, which teaches people of all ages how to just show up for themselves and others so they are empowered and resilient when grief arrives. Because when you don't know what to do and you don't know what to say, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and you can't fix it. The magic answer is just show up.
And I love your examples of this, Yvonne, and some of them have been done for me. You mentioned walk the dogs. When I was in chemo, try as I might, and I am a hardcore dog walker, just couldn't do it. And I had a friend who was one of my dog walking buddies and just walked my dog for me. And you think, oh, okay, well, big deal. It was a big deal.
It is a big deal. It is, and there's tremendous grief in what you're talking about. You're like, I want to walk my dog. I don't want to do this chemo. I'm grief. Do you see, even in there's grief in that. And we need to acknowledge that and say, yeah, this is hard. And then, right, acknowledge and allow those feelings, and then allow people to just show up for you, right? I have no doubt your friend was delighted to help you in that way, and it meant something to you as well. So you see, when I say to people, I know you can't fix it, and it's uncomfortable, don't wait for it to be comfortable. It's not comfortable. Just show up anyways. And
it could be and I think what I love about your message is it could be as quirky as your relationship. It doesn't have to be, here's your casserole, It can be, I have some peonies that are blooming right now, and I'm going to put them in a mason jar and send them over. And, that's a moment for you, and it makes you feel good. But boy, it's hard to even imagine what that's like for the other person, just to feel that kindness. That
kindness, that, validation. And Lyle Benjamin has this beautiful movement called PAC, Planned Acts of Kindness. And I mean, random acts of kindness are great. Even better, planned acts of kindness. So when you know your friend is going through chemotherapy, that means that she may be emotionally, physically, mentally exhausted. Just show up for her, walk the dog, cut the grass, pick up kids, bring food. The smallest gestures when you're struggling are just so gorgeous. So this new neighborhood I just moved into, as I mentioned, I injured my foot. Our cute little neighbor, and I knew her before, I saw her, she sends her husband over with this heating lamp for my foot. Now, isn't that just the sweetest thing ever? And
that's just like
beautiful.
It gets to the real core of our humanity.
Oh, it meant so much to me, right? And like I shared in my TED Talk, when I was going through so much, and people were avoiding me because, when you have a son with addictions, talk about awkward. Hello. Yes, it's awkward. Try being the person or the mom. But people were avoiding me. And then on that really hard day, this beautiful neighbor just put a little pot of daffodils on my front step.
Oh.
Right? She wasn't even there when I got there, just this pot of daffodils. And I literally cried for an hour. And we are talking this 11, 12 years ago. I still talk about those daffodils, and I have fake daffodils in my office here to commemorate it, and I spoke of it in my TED Talk.
Did she see the TED Talk when you use those daffodils?
I said, by the way, you should. I said, have you seen my TED Talk? She said, no, I have to watch that. I said, well, yeah, you should. Your daffodils are in it. Hello,
I love that.
Watch my TED Talk.
That is so beautiful.
It means so much. So you know, and it's twofold though, right? Because the greatest lesson with that just showing up. The first thing you need to do, and I mean, we could talk about this for a whole hour, but that whole self-care piece, oh yeah, we should be great self-caregivers, or oh yeah, I need to take care of myself. No. It's non-negotiable. You are in charge of your own happiness. That is your responsibility. Coping skills, strategies, plan your life, plan your end of life, and just show up for yourself first, because guess what? When you do, you will be able to just show up for others. And you're being a great example, right? And so when I'm able to shine my light, I'm feeling very shiny today. So I'm shining my light today. There are days I don't feel so shiny. And it's like, you know what? I might be having a little pity party just for the next hour. And I'm only going to show up for myself. And no judgment. I think I might binge on Grey's Anatomy for the next hour and a half, because I just need to check out. Or, you know... And we need to be really great at that, because then we can teach others by our own example.
But you're talking about being tuned in
Yes.
enough to know, hey, I need some Grey's Anatomy,
Yeah.
or I need to walk, in the woods, or I need to make some beautiful something in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
I think, that's sounds simple, but there's a lot of reasons why it's difficult, particularly now when we're scrolling our brains out.
Yeah. Yes, and we complicate things, right? We complicate things. And one of the things I do tell people, because I can recharge in 5 minutes in nature. So when people say I don't have time, I say, then what can you do to change that? Because that is up to you. If you cannot spend half an hour a day on self-care or going for a walk in the forest, and first of all, you need to know what refills your soul and refuels your soul, right? Walking in nature, just like you, Nicole, that does it for me. Walking my dog in the forest, I'm done. So I know, and we all created self-care toolboxes in our home, because when I'm grieving, I know I can't think well, so I go to my self-care toolbox. First thing is in there is a duck and a branch. Oh yeah, I need to get outside. Just to remind me, right?
Basics.
And if you cannot create that time, if your schedule is so tight that you can't, what can you do to change that? And yes, it is challenging being at home. We have to acknowledge and allow that grief. And now what? What can you do? And I constantly am reminding people is that we do not have to socially distance. We have to physically distance. There's a very big difference. And when you feel zoomed out, I get it. Go outside, hug a tree, stick your feet in some sand, some water, whatever, and then get back in there and Zoom your grandmother. Because when I was in high school, we didn't have this technology, and this could have been happening then, and we would be fighting over the landline. Right? So this is a gift. This is a gift that we get to connect globally with people all around the world. So find that what is going to feed your soul. And for, like I said, if you have 5 minutes, go outside for 5 minutes and be very intentional about standing there, feeling your feet in the grass, slow, deep breaths.
And stand under a tree and get some fractals too.
Yes.
While you're... And the reality is, I don't want to be harsh, but many people are watching hours of Netflix or TikToks.
Yes.
So that is true that maybe they feel like, oh, I've run out of time.
Yep.
But maybe it's time to say, well, what are you using your time for? And is it recharging?
Is it recharging you? We all have the same amount of time. I don't even allow people to tell me they're busy anymore or, oh my God, I don't have time. It's like, no, we all have the same amount of time and you're prioritizing. So what are you prioritizing? That's all there is to it. Like for me, before I decided to crack my foot, but I worked out every day. That's non-negotiable, or 6 days a week, downstairs in my basement. And I get up at 5:30 in the morning because I like that quiet time to myself. That is what refuels me. And so everyone needs to figure out when their good time of day is, create that time for themselves and recharge. Because truthfully, when you are a great example of that, then the other people in your family will also be happier and self-reliant because they don't have to worry about you. And you're being a great example. You're teaching them how to just show up for themselves first.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
That's really important. So where can people find out more about Love Your Life to Death and also the Just Show Up movement?
Awesome. It's everything. People can reach out. My TED Talk, everything is at loveyourlifetodeath.com.
Okay. And you have some courses and all kinds of stuff.
I have all kinds of juicy stuff. Well, I just, I want information available to people in every modality. And when people, if they follow me, they'll get 10 tips on navigating life, grief, and everything in between. And my weekly blog is just, it's just real life, what's happening in life, and just acknowledging the good stuff and the other stuff and how we can just show up for ourselves and each other.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Yvonne. I think that you offer such an important lesson and no time more important than now. People are really at a loss, and I know that you probably already know this, but as therapists, we just cannot keep up with the demand and record numbers, people just lining up who have never used services before but are saying, I don't think I should be doing this alone. I'm not doing well. So these are such important lessons. And so I really appreciate you spending time with me today and helping our audience learn how to navigate and be more comfortable with the grieving process.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for just showing up and for just showing up for your audience. And, it's my greatest mission is to support the supporters, like those supporting those who are grieving, because, it is a lot. It is a lot to carry, and you're going through your own personal stuff. And so the professionals are truly my heart, because that's what I was. And I would have loved someone to teach me how to just show up.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
yes.
right.
So important for professionals to just show up for themselves first, and challenging. Yes.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.